Hello, Mr. Robot. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry this video is a little delayed. The weather was a real mess where I am in the world, and we had rolling blackouts, and it was like -20. So I'm so sorry for the delay, but it just nothing could be done. However, I do believe in divine timing. And today, what are we going to do?
You know, let's actually cover a little bit of that divine timing in a little bit, but we'll talk about timelines and consciousness, the way consciousness traverses the potentials of everything. Because I know you like to probe, or I should say, a lot of people who talk to you like to try to probe the future. I've kind of given up on it because I feel like there's so many variables that can sway a timeline, but maybe we can kind of get some more information on that concept with Eridif and Bashar. Maybe we always talk to Bashar, so maybe we can start with Eridif if you could get him.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have Eridif.
Robert.
Timelines are tricky. And what is so interesting to me about timelines is that the closer you are to the event or whatever it is you're probing, the more accurate it is. And sometimes, you know, you'll say, well, this may happen by the end of the week, or actually it's actually when you're probing further out, you know, you're not as far to the energy. And then for some reason, the timeline can get pushed out by a couple of weeks, or it can retract and come back in and happen, you know, sooner than you anticipated. So I would like to try to get some answers as to why these timelines, you know, are so changeable.
Okay, so first of all, does Eridif kind of look like this right now to you?
No. I mean, a little bit, yes.
What does he look like right now?
More gray looking to me, but then he's presenting himself in hologram form, and hologram forms are more gray green looking.
Okay. Can we just confirm that this is the Eridif who channels through Robert?
This is the channels through Robert. Yes, that is correct.
Cool. I always like to just start out with the basics of kind of making sure we got the right person, because one time we were talking to we thought it was Cryon, and it misled some people. Or actually it was Abraham who channels through Esther Hicks, but you were channeling the biblical Abraham instead of collective. So I always like to kind of get that consolidate on who we are talking to first. But can you ask Eridif if he would be a good person to probe about consciousness and the nature of timelines?
Are you a good entity to probe about consciousness and the nature of timelines? No, because it's very difficult for them to understand that concept.
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to assume that just because he's a higher dimensional being that he knows the answers. So let's ask Bashar the same question, if you could.
Okay. Do you understand timelines and how they work? No. They're devoid of timelines. They're not attached to time and space. We have time and space here because we have gravity. That's why we have timelines.
Can you ask Bashar if his frequency is over 300,000 cycles per second?
Is your frequency over 300,000 cycles per second? Yes. What does that mean?
So Bashar says that that is the whereabouts, the threshold, kind of like the boiling point of water, where an entity, we are all vibrating, and your cycles per second, I think he says a human is around 100,000. Can you ask him if that's true?
I feel like it's lower.
Maybe 75,000?
Maybe. Yes.
Yeah. So that's when you actually transcend into non-physical. Can you actually ask Bashar if when we're dead, if a human soul is near 300,000 cycles per second?
When we're dead, is the human soul near 300,000 cycles per second? It's higher than that.
Okay, because that makes perfect sense, and that kind of clarifies that the information is coming through is accurate, because Bashar says that they're partially physical, their race, and that they're phasing out of physicality and they're somewhat ascending. So us being dead in that question is non-physical, therefore we would be higher than 300,000. So that was kind of cool to confirm.
Oh, okay. I had no idea.
But so real quick question on that cycles per second. Can you ask Bashar if when humans meditate, can we raise our cycles per second?
When humans meditate, can we raise our cycles per second? No, only your consciousness.
Okay, yeah, not our physicality. So when we meditate, can we raise the frequency of our consciousness?
Raise the frequency of our consciousness. Yes.
Cool. I just found this option to do a one-on-one. I think it'd be cool to kind of back test all of the information we have, like if he has a soul. I would love to ask him directly. But
there's no soul. No, Bashar does not have a soul.
Yeah, it's so weird. I feel like I'm using the wrong vocabulary. Like maybe they don't know what we mean by that.
No, he knows. He knows what you mean.
Cool. So anyways, there are some aspects to the timelines that I feel like Bashar will know, and he actually talks a lot about the concept that all versions of the Earth exists in the current time. Can you ask him if that's correct?
You talk about the concept of all versions of the, what is it? All versions of the Earth
are happening in the current moment?
Yes, when you're outside of the realm of gravity, it feels that way. Yes.
Well, I don't mean necessarily from like his own perspective, but from the perspective of the nature of the universe. Are all versions, basically all potentials happening all at once?
All potentials happening all at once. Yes. So that's an interesting question, because you said basically the universe, most things in the universe are devoid of gravity.
Yeah.
Are we the only planet really with gravity? I mean, we're not the only planet with gravity, but we're certainly few and far between.
Well, I mean, the whole universe is physical. At least I'm just talking about the physical universe. There's obviously non-physical aspects, but all physical anything has mass, which therefore has gravity. So, you know, the point is that Bashar says that, let's just say we are here on this planet Earth. You can consciously jump to a parallel Earth in which it is more like what you prefer more than this Earth. Ask him if that's true.
Only in consciousness, not in physical.
Yeah, so our physicality would stay behind, but there's a parallel reality version of our physical body on this parallel Earth that our consciousness can jump to. Is that correct?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, do we have more than one physical body happening at any one time? No, it's only the consciousness. So this goes into timelines, right? So say where your arrow is, that was a different, time period. Say that Earth was 200 years ago. You had an existence 200 years ago, a lifetime 200 years ago. In your consciousness, you can go and see that lifetime that happened 200 years ago, but in consciousness only. The physical body is only one physical body.
Yeah, you know what? I actually just thought of something why Bashar wouldn't necessarily, quote unquote, know about timelines is because from his talks, he says that there isn't a past or a future, that everything is in the now. So can you ask him how we can predict the future?
So that's interesting because he doesn't have a soul, he only has a consciousness. That would make sense to me, right? But because we have a soul, and the job of our soul is to gain enlightenment, to have soul life lessons. Therefore, we are bound by different rules than they are. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yep, don't remember.
Oh, God. And now our audience will say, yeah, we know what the question is. It was something to do with a timeline.
Yeah, well, basically the question was like, can we predict the future?
You predict the future with your consciousness, because your consciousness, again, say hypothetically that planet is 5 years in the future, right? You would move your consciousness in the future. You would project it into the future, or, excuse me, the future would project itself to you.
Okay, so let's just assume Bashar knows how you do your time movement. Can you ask him what he would do to add more accuracy to the time movements?
What would you do?
The information?
That's a good question. What would you do to add more accuracy to the time movements? So I would really need to focus more. But I go through my predictions very quickly.
What does Bashar think about predictions that don't come true? Are they true in a parallel universe, or did they just never happen?
That's a good question. What about predictions that don't come true? Are they true in another parallel universe? No. Excuse me. What do you mean by no? Is it based upon probabilities? So is the future certain? Yes, the future is certain. See, I always get that. I always get that the future is certain. But when I'm doing time movements and I'm doing, a future self, I notice that is based upon the probabilities of what is happening today to the most probable outcome. Now, sometimes that probable outcome can change. And I don't understand why.
Yeah, what does he say about that?
Why does the probable outcome change? Because I'm not getting the full picture. So say we're in a bull market, right? And I probe Bitcoin a month out. And the crypto market has been hotter than it's ever been. And Bitcoin is gaining, thousands of dollars every day. And I hypothetically say, I probe it out a month in the future, and I say, wow, Bitcoin is going to be, $200,000. But then something big happens and it just shatters everything, everybody's reality. And I don't understand why, when I'm looking out, that isn't taken into consideration on that timeline. Now, when I say a big event, I'm talking about a big event. I'm talking about like Putin drops a nuclear bomb, or you know what I mean? Or we have another version of the virus, but far more deadly than ever before and spreading more rapidly than ever before, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the types of incidents that can really toy with the market. So I don't understand. I don't understand this whole thing. That's why I wanted to do a probe on this. What would be the next question to ask?
Well, you know what's interesting is we asked Bashar about Bitcoin, and he said towards the end of the year it was going to go down. And look at this. It's I feel like he wasn't right about the timing, though, because I feel like he made it sound like it was going to be around Thanksgiving, somewhere around here. But there's no big down moves here, but it's more in the beginning of November. Can you ask him if that Bitcoin prediction he made was off from his perspective?
Prediction you made off? No, from his perspective, no. He said no.
Ask him if he didn't analyze the time of his prediction well enough. Did you analyze the time
of your prediction well enough? That is correct. So, because they don't have any concept of time and space. So trying to relay that information over is very difficult. And to make me understand what their version of time and space is, because there isn't a version, or maybe they have a different, do you have a version of time and space up there? Yes, but it's so far mathematically removed from our version of time and space. It's almost non-existent.
So their time so he said since there are 300,000 cycles per second, that things move about 3,000 times faster, like in the progression of their race compared to the how long it takes us to progress, because they're so fast that they're just kind of solving problems instantly compared to us. Anyways, can you tell him, ask him, for all the crypto viewers, a year out, does he, at the end of 2023, does he see Bitcoin going back over 40K?
The end of
at all?
2023, do you see Bitcoin going back over 40,000? Do you see Bitcoin going back over 40,000 US dollars? No. You'll be lucky if it even hits 30.
Does he see the price by the end of 2023, XRP ever getting over $2?
Do you ever see the price of, by the end of 2023, of XRP ever getting over $2? No.
Or over $1?
Over $1? Does it ever get over $1? No, it may come close, but no. Excuse me. Now, this goes into what we're talking about. So we're getting
Timelines.
information from Bashar, right? Yeah. We're getting information from Bashar that is basically a year out from now.
Yeah.
And this is where, it's so far out into the future that that information is subject to change.
Well, so what's interesting is we actually did a Bashar crypto probe, and there was 2 coins we got that he said did the best. So let's just check them out real quick. And let's just do 5 months between now, December 29th, 2022, and let's just say, whatever, July 2023. Does UFO gaming go up over 300%?
Does UFO gaming go up over 300% from its current value? No, but I feel like it does gain.
Okay, and the other coin that we got from him was Starlink. Can you ask him if Starlink in that same time frame does better or worse than UFO token?
Yeah, Starlink do better or worse than UFO token? Does it do better or worse? It's about the same.
And would he say that these move about the same amount compared to Bitcoin?
Do they move about the same amount compared to Bitcoin? No.
They move better?
Do they move better? No, they move worse. They're slower than Bitcoin.
Well, that's both true and false in some different ways. So the market cap is really low, which means they can move insanely rapidly. But the fact that they don't move, according to him, says that just no one's interested in them, at least in the next, let's just say 5 months, or 7 months.
But
so
this is where I would like to try to get some clarification on timelines, because for 2022, actually, overall, my predictions were correct. Nobody wanted to hear that it was going to be a bad year for crypto and for the markets. No one wanted to hear that crypto exchanges were going to go down. No one wanted to hear that, we're going to have significant drops. We're not going to have major gains. And overall, that information was correct. Now, looking at 2023, let's ask Bashar, what do you see the crypto market doing in 2023? See, it's down. Now, what concerns me, and we'll do a more in-depth probe on it tomorrow morning, but the Winklevoss twins are now being sued for fraudulently swindling 900 billion or something, some obscene amount of money, lying to customers, or there's a class action suit against them. And now they believe, the media is certainly reporting that this could be the end of the Gemini exchange. And I have said to people, get all your stuff off all these exchanges. We knew that Gemini was in trouble. We did an extensive probe on all of this a while ago, exclusively for Patreon subscribers. So here we go again. We could end up with a collapse of Gemini.
Let's ask Bashar about a couple exchanges. If by 2023 Coinbase is still running.
Is Coinbase still running at the end of 2023? It's barely holding on.
And in
Binance is holding on.
In 2023, were there any major crypto problems in general?
Were there any major crypto problems in general? See, it's that same thing again and again and again. The same thing that I keep getting all the time. The whole world erupts.
So he's saying there's a negative event?
Is there a negative event that goes on with cryptos? Yeah. Maybe I'm not supposed to be able to know.
So I actually remember this stuff. You were getting that there will be, a quantum. Well, this is what people assume, is that there's a quantum financial system coming in. Can you ask Bashar if he sees that quantum financial system coming in 2023?
No. Not by 2023. Not in 2023. No.
Yeah.
That's further out.
And for fun, let's just ask Bashar if he sees us using CBDCs within the next 5 years.
Do you see us using CBDCs within the next 5 years? No.
Ask him if it's a different technology than CBDCs, but more advanced than cash.
In the next 5 years? No.
What does Bashar think in the next 5 years from right now in 2022 would be the best thing for us to buy in general that will become worth more?
What do you think is the best thing for us to buy in general that will become worth more? Property and land. Again, the same answers.
Yeah, well, that's ain't that the truth?
Yeah, really, but that's not obtainable for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. Okay, so is there anything that is cheap, generally speaking, that will become worth, let's just say 10 times more over 5 years?
Is there anything cheap that you believe it's going to be worth 10 times more in the next 5 years? Some stocks, yes. What about exchange? Oh, sorry, ETFs. So what about ETFs? No, not so much ETFs. But definitely certain types of stocks will be.
Ask him what sector those stocks are, if he can answer that.
What sector are the stocks in? Are they in gas and oil? I feel like gas, oil. What else? REITs, land. What else? Anything else? Microchip. Now, this isn't official financial advice, okay?
Yeah.
And just remember, we're talking to an alien collective. Do you really want to, no disrespect to Bashar, but please, do you really want to invest on an alien collective's word? No, do your own research.
Yeah, accurate. So here's some penny stocks. Ask him if any penny stocks do well in the next 2 years.
Any penny stocks do well in the next 2 years? No, you're going to have to wait till the market goes back into full recovery.
Yeah. And doing well is relative, because you can swing 24% on some random coin, but is there liquidity to exit? Probably not for most people, unless you're broke like me. But can you ask Bashar if there's anything to do with quantum mechanics that affect timelines?
Anything to do with quantum mechanics that affects timelines? Yes.
Can you ask him if it has to do with, at the smallest level, like the wave function of an element?
The wave function of an element. No. It has to be on a much larger, a much more collective level.
Can you ask Bashar if there's any consciousness in one atom?
There's a lot of consciousness in one atom.
Can you ask Bashar what causes the field of the electrons to make all these crazy patterns?
What causes the field of electrons to make all these different patterns? It's the movement.
But why do electrons follow certain patterns?
Why do electrons follow certain patterns? Because that's their destiny. That's their life plan. Or do they have a soul? Does an atom, does an electron have a soul? No, but the electron has a consciousness.
Can you ask Bashar how a quantum leap happens?
I don't even know what a quantum leap is. How does a quantum leap happen? It's very rare. What is a quantum leap? Explain that to me, please.
So I thought it happened a lot, but it's an electron being here and then all of a sudden I think there's two trains of thought, is that it all of a sudden becomes here without traveling physical space, or the other train of thought is that it's actually jumping to its parallel reality atom.
No.
Can you ask Bashar where the electron is while it is nowhere between the leap?
Where is the electron when it's nowhere between the leap? It's still there. It's just like invisible.
Can you ask him if it is transferring locations via a higher dimension?
Is it transferring locations via a higher dimension? No.
So something about dimensions I wanted to ask Bashar is, he said when they make spaceships, they have a lattice of stuff that grows. They make it within a certain dimension. Can you ask Bashar how they make materials that are restricted to only a certain dimension?
How do you make materials that are restricted only to a certain dimension? How do you make those materials? Are they actually in existence? Yes, they are. So how are those materials made? They make them with their minds, their consciousness.
Cool.
If that makes any sense whatsoever.
So they can manipulate matter.
Can you manipulate that? Yes, that is correct.
Can you ask them how many dimensions they can work within upwards?
How many dimensions can you work within upwards? 5. I don't even know what you mean by that.
Well, if they can manipulate things, I'm just wondering how many dimensions, or actually maybe it's not dimensions. I always confuse dimensions with densities. Is it the 5th density that he can work into?
No.
Okay, so ask him what the 5th dimension is, the way a human can understand it.
What is the 5th dimension in a way that a human can understand it? It's a level of consciousness without a physical body.
In which dimension is time in?
Ooh. Good question. Which dimension is time actually in? 2.
Okay.
As well. 2, 3. Is it in the 4th dimension? And 4.
Yeah. Can we ask him to specify if he was referring to dimensions or densities?
2 dimensions or densities. They're intertwined.
Because we've gotten in general from our talks that like humans are in the second density, but I mean we live in 4 dimensions, up, down, and time being the 4th. But I guess I wonder about the density levels of our consciousness, because when we're asleep, I assume we are accessing a higher density. Can you ask maybe Eridif that question?
Accessing a higher density. Yes.
And so I'm wondering how you can apply this towards timelines, because I'm thinking, I'm sure you being a super psychic, you're probably what is the word, like when you're awake but when you're asleep, like what is it called? Like, do you have that when you're asleep but you can control it, you're like awake?
Yeah, so sometimes when I'm closing my eyes, like for instance, when it was really cold and I would close my eyes and then I'll see like these faces and they're trying to talk to me just before I go to sleep. And one was this lady who was older and she froze to death in her car.
Interesting.
I could see her. She was in her car trying to talk to me.
But she didn't know you. She just, as a dead soul, was picking up that you could hear her, apparently, right?
Right. That happens frequently. Sometimes that happens very frequently. Where it's like they're just trying to get me as my brain waves are drifting off, yet I'm still somewhat conscious. My eyes are closed.
So, um, a lot of us normal people who don't have extreme psychic ability, we do very deep meditations to try to access higher dimensional information. And I'm just thinking, if you wanted to nail predictions in like a really epic way, you might want to do like a really deep meditation where you like, kind of like how when I was doing like Akashic, how like my spine will vibrate and kind of transcend your whole soul or whatever, up a couple densities, and maybe you'd be able to access the timelines better.
That's very true. However, you need your consciousness to do remote viewing. And remote viewing is making those time movements.
Yeah, well,
I know it's hard. I know.
well, I was just gonna say, that's the framework that you're used to, but um, you know, sometimes you can break out of the bounds and you might be able. I'm just saying, since you're so aware, like you fall into the framework of remote viewing because that's like the framework that you learned, but you're naturally connected. So I think I'm just saying, like, have you ever tried like an Akashic meditation?
Oh yeah, like I do meditations. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. So before remote viewing, okay, I've always been a psychic medium. The problem was I couldn't control the flow of information. Just like when I'm closing my eyes to go to sleep, when it was really cold, I see this older lady. She froze to death in her car, and she wanted to talk to me. She wanted to talk to her family. She appeared. And that's because you don't have control of the flow of the information. When you don't have control of the flow of that information, you can just get a, gobbledygook. It's just, I've done it, but you want to make sure that you're looking for pinpointed information. See, that's where a lot of psychics go wrong. Okay. That's the problem. And I'm glad you brought this up. That's where a lot of psychics can really go get things bad, really bad. So say they want to know about a particular coin, say Bitcoin, and they decide they're going to meditate on Bitcoin, and they're going to lower their brain waves. They're going to use binaural beats, whatever it is, meditation, and they're going to just pull information about Bitcoin. Okay. Well, they're getting that Bitcoin's going to be $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, it could be $1 million in another currency that is worthless. And, like Zimbabwe.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Like, so there's your first mistake. Oh, I see it going. It's going to be worth several million, or it's going to be worth $1 million or whatever. But because you're not controlling the flow of that information, you don't know what currency it's in. You don't know which country it's in. You don't know which year it's in. You don't have a clue if it's even still the same Bitcoin. It could be the new technology. You don't have a clue. So I mean, that's really just taking a stab in the dark with predictions. The best way to make your predictions as accurate as possible is using time movements. Now, those time movements aren't always accurate. So maybe I need to, say, okay, Bitcoin will reach $17,000 tomorrow. So maybe then I need to take that prediction, and then I would need to meditate on that more from that point on. That is a solution. However, who has the time for that? Meditations take a long time. And with the amount of information that I'm putting out, right, I would only be able to put out like one small video. I wouldn't be able to sit there channeling this, probing that, putting out this information, putting out that information. Okay, now I'm probing this one. Now I'm probing that one. But I see your point. Your point is, yeah, but if it's always dead on accurate, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, if you did one video a month and you told people Bitcoin's going to go up 20%, and it was accurate, I think, your following would go up 1,000,000%.
Yes, but it's not taking into account all their own personal soul blockages.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. And that's why I gave up. But yeah. So the only other person I would think of to ask this question is Seth, because he's a soul.
Mm-hmm.
Can you connect with Seth?
Yes, Seth from Seth Speaks. Yes.
Yes. Okay, and you can let go of Bashar and Erudif.
Okay.
And thanks, guys. And what does Seth think about this idea that there's parallel versions of Earth? Let's just ask him that. Are there parallel realities?
Are there parallel realities? No, there's only one reality.
Can you ask Seth if his information is being altered by source?
Is your information being altered by source? No, he's speaking the truth.
And
no, he's putting it into layman's terms, which is, layman's terms, as a human, there's only one reality.
Yeah, so I mean, what that really truly means is there's your from your own perspective, because like, so for instance, Bashar says that you're always viewing, through your consciousness, but you're hopping parallel versions of reality, but like your reality might feel like it's always the same. So I don't know if there's any way to really isolate this answer question, because they do dumb it down for us a lot, and it actually leaves out a lot of the important stuff that would allow us to think about it deeper. But let's just ask Seth.
Okay, what am I asking?
How we can predict the future better.
How can we predict the future better? Now, see, he's turning it on me, and he's saying you have to believe in yourself. Now, I totally get what he's saying here, because the more, see, I don't like to be too overconfident. I don't like that, because when you're overconfident, you make mistakes, right? But he's saying, not with your consciousness, Liz. It's about what is the energy within me. So if I have more self-love and confident energy within me, my predictions ultimately, would be better. Now I get this, because internally we all have blockages, right? And for whatever reason, I probably have blockages as well, which stops me from, saying, okay, well, at 5:55 p.m., Bitcoin is going to go up by $500 on the dot. Put your wagers in, be out by 5:57. Okay. That's awesome. The type of, you see, that's the type of information everybody's looking for. And that's the type of information that is impossible to obtain, because that's breaking spiritual laws, right? If psychics were supposed to be wealthy, they would be.
But here's the thing is, I feel like no matter what, even if you did have the ability to call that, I feel like if people had a soul whatever contract, they would either not find you, or their phone would die, something. So I feel like, having the information is one thing, but people being able to act on it is another. So I think it is possible for you to put the information out there.
If I have the, the white light within me to bless others. But some people aren't supposed to be blessed like that. They're just not. That goes against their soul contract. You're right. They don't find me. Or, taking a recent example, I had somebody who, for whatever reason, kept self-sabotaging their ability to have a reading with me. And on the second attempt, I'm like, hey, I'm done with this, right? So, we have all these self-sabotage mechanisms running within us. And all of those self-sabotage mechanisms are energetic frameworks that have been laid down not only in this lifetime, but in many past lives. So you have to work on getting rid of all of this stuff. And it's not instant. Being a Reiki practitioner, it's not instant. You may have to go in and do Reiki over and over and over again. It's a process. And that's the problem that people have, is accepting that everything is a process.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so yeah, that reminds me of divine timing. So since I do these talks and we talk about the universe and I listen to all these higher self is controlling your reality type stuff. I feel like every single thing is kind of like a sign. So I read into basically everything around me. And I'm wondering if we can ask Seth, like, if that's like, for instance, is a pretty lame example, but like the other night, like I had just opened a beer and then right then it fell over and spilled almost the whole thing. And I just laughed because I don't take it as coincidence. I take it as my higher self sabotage me and dumping out the beer.
Oh
Uh
yeah. Yeah,
so
and telling you there's a message there.
yeah, so can you ask Seth if there's messages in every little thing that happens, kind of like that? Is that for like that example?
Messages in every little thing like that. Yes, in everything that we do, there's messages.
Yeah, because for like what I'm trying to say is I don't look at anything anymore as being inert or non-meaningful. So I see, there's this really cool book about synchronicity, and it goes into the levels. A lot of people think it's just like seeing 333, but it's actually like, you're driving and then all of a sudden a bird is driving, or like a bird flies by you, and it does a certain pattern. I don't know. Like I feel like everything is connected in that sense. But I
Oh yeah, absolutely.
kind of wanted to hear Seth's perspective, like how much someone should read into what's happening around them.
How much should someone read into what is happening there? Well, that's how we process information, right? But most of the time, we're so busy trying to live life. What are we doing? We stuff it down. We stuff it down. We stuff it down. We hide it away. We lock it away. We compartmentalize it. And if we have the time, we will go back to it. A lot of times we don't have that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just, the next day is upon us and it's a whole new set of circumstances.
Yeah, and on that note, something interesting that Seth talks about is kind of the illusion of time, about how everything is kind of a skit and you've actually pre-planned it likely the night before in your dreams, in what's called like the template layer reality. Can you ask me if that's accurate?
The template layer reality, is that accurate? No.
Well, can you ask Seth if your soul or consciousness plans out the next day while you're asleep?
Does your soul or consciousness plan out the next day while you're asleep? No. That's already been planned before you arrived on planet Earth. Isn't that crazy?
Well, so what sucks about that is it,
Hmm.
I feel like if people read that the wrong way, it can make you feel real, like life is pointless and futile if everything is going to happen no matter what. So,
Yeah, and part of a CTT session that I did right before I called you was where this person's failings were. You have to embrace the struggle. If you're constantly negative about the struggle, you have to understand that on the other side of that struggle, yes, it's hardship. Yes, it's sadness. Yes, it's PTSD. Of course it is. But we're ultimately supposed to embrace the struggle and see the beauty within it.
oh yeah, for sure.
That's really hard to do. Now, I'll tell you something, how I knew that I was going to marry my husband. So my husband and I, we met under very strange circumstances. Well, it's not strange, but it is strange. To cut a long story short, these two guys stopped us outside of a bar. I was with my friend at the time in London and said, hey, we're from South Africa and we're dying to get into this really trendy nightclub, but because they like to keep the ratio male to female like even. They don't like to have too many males in these nightclubs, right? Because too much testosterone. When people start drinking, they start fighting. So will you pretend to be our dates? And we're like, yeah, okay. We'll pay for your entry. We'll pay for your entry and we'll buy you a big drink, whatever you want. So my friend and I, we were absolutely flat broke. And we're like, yeah, okay, because we quite like this club. We've been into this nightclub before. And so we go into this nightclub and this guy, you know, they did what they said they were going to do. They paid our entry. They bought us a drink. They said, see you later, girls. And we're like, yeah, okay. And this guy standing on the left of me, unbeknownst to me, had dropped a drug in my drink. Okay. Wow. Now, I don't want to go into the whole story. My husband, police officer at the time, he noticed that this guy had dropped a drug in my drink. He pulls out his badge, his warrant card, and he says, she's with me and you've dropped a drug in her drink. I should really arrest you, but you know, I'm not, you know, I'm just going to take, you know, I'm going to take care of her. She's with me. And he was like, oh, sorry, mate. Sorry. And I'm like, okay, this is a bit of a weird scenario. So fast forward probably a month later. Now you have to think in terms of London being this huge city with like 10 million people, this massive like subway or tube network, you know, trains and subways and buses and people everywhere. And I'd been seeing him for about a month. And some of the trains are overground, right? And before they start going underground and into the tunnel. So the closer you get to the city, the trains then start going underground. And one of my friends had called me and she says, oh, Lizzie, because that's what they call me, Lizzie. Lizzie, are you going to come out tonight and go to this gig? You know, we were all into the music scene. Or are you going to be, and she said with my husband, she says, are you going out with, and she said my husband's name tonight. And I said, no, I'm staying at home because, you know, I don't know, whatever reason. And she says, I have to go because these two blokes sitting across from me are laughing at me and I don't know why. Like they're making me feel really uncomfortable. And so I said, well, you know, stay on the phone then if they're making you feel uncomfortable. She's like, well, we're about to go in the tunnel, you know, and that was it. The connection was severed. Yeah. And I was really worried about my friend, right? And so 10 minutes later, she called me back and I was like, oh my God, are you okay? She's like, I just met your boyfriend. Yeah. And I was like, what? She says, you remember the two blokes that were laughing at me and they were sitting across from me on the tube? And I was like, yeah. She goes, that was your boyfriend and his best friend. And I was like, how did they know who you were talking to? And they said that she just gave something away because she said my name and she said his name. They just knew it was me. But you have to understand, in a city of 10 million people and, you know, all these, you know, crazy scenarios, the fact that she was actually sitting across from my then at the time boyfriend. Yeah. It was just crazy. And it just something hit me at that moment. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, Spirit, he is the one. But it's really weird how, so when you say, you know, it's just things like that that are so magnificent about life. And
the divine
timing, right? I mean, what if she would have been on the next train? Those trains are coming, those tubes are coming every 30 seconds, every minute, right? Mm-hmm. They're coming through there all the time. She could have been on any number of those carriages. She could have been at the front. She could have been at the back. She could have been, but no, she sat down across from him at this particular time. I mean, it's just weird. And that's when I was like, okay, because I really believe in divine timing. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. that's confirmed. He's the one that I'm going to marry. And 23 years later, we're still together. So, yeah, but it's things like that all the time, all the time. There's been so many incidents, so say for instance, just hypothetically, you get a flat tire, you walk out into your driveway and your tire is low or your tire's flat, and it takes you like a couple extra minutes to maybe pump it up or seal it up or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to trust that. You have to trust that. For whatever reason, you were supposed to be delayed.
Yep. I found it through found that true from all of our chats and Seth and everybody, that I don't know if you can really, manifest anything, but I mean,
well, that's a good question. Let's ask. Can we manifest? We can ask for things, yes, but it's all based upon our intention. You have to be good custodians of whatever it is you want to receive. Sometimes things happen with miracles, right? Miracles happen, but they're supposed to happen because your intentions are pure, but also the lesson behind a miracle, like you're praying for a miracle and that miracle happens. I'm not talking about a small miracle. Small miracles are important, yes, but I'm talking about big miracles, right? And those miracles happen, and your whole life perspective is supposed to change. So it's pre-miracle is going to give you a different outlook than post-miracle. And so that's where you have to embrace the struggle. And then sometimes, or a lot of times, those miracles never facilitate or manifest themselves at all. And you have to understand all of the emotions and the processes that are going on around that not manifesting. And that's what I mean. You know that there's a struggle at that time, but you have to start embracing these struggles with respect for the universe. Okay, this isn't a nice feeling. This isn't a nice event or whatever it is that's happening, but you have to get to a point where the universe has sent this to me for a reason, and I'm going to embrace it because obviously the universe has better plans for me. Now that sounds really, really hard to grasp. It's like people that go for healing and they expect everything to be the same. Well, I've got loads of money coming in and I'm very popular. Excuse me. And I have a perfect relationship, but I'm actually not a nice person. And I have a lack of gratitude, and I have, say narcissistic personality disorder. And I know that I need to change, which is very rare for anybody who has the misfortune of being around a narcissist. They never change. It's very rare. But maybe this one, miracle narcissist says, I need to change. And so they start doing like all these, Reiki, CTT, ayahuasca, whatever, shrooms, whatever. Yeah. And suddenly their entire life is becoming unraveled. Everything's falling apart. I have no money. My relationship has just gone up the spout, right? I'm losing my house. I lost the lawsuit. I did this, I did that. Well, you have to remember, you've just worked on all of this healing. When you're trying to heal, when you're trying to meditate, when you're trying to manifest, please don't expect everything to stay the same. It's not going to, especially when you're trying to heal. I mean, have you actually come across where there's fallouts from Reiki healing? What I mean by fallouts is like you've healed somebody and then the next day they've had a massive fallout in a relationship. Maybe they've lost their job. Maybe, something big has happened. Have you experienced that?
The only one that I can think of is I did Reiki on my friend, and the next day she got like really sick, and she was like, "Oh, Reiki messed me up," and I was like, "Ah, it's like a lot of spiritual muck that got." It's like it's so the analogy is, a river is looks clean and pure, and then if you do some work in it, all that dirt is going to make it muddy, and you have to flush it out. So that's the biggest thing. Is it's called a spiritual, or it's called a healing crisis. Um, so I basically just work with physical and usually just mental. I haven't done any soul contract or anything, so I don't know if Reiki would affect someone like that, but I know how it can affect people on that level is if they become a Reiki practitioner like I did, because then a lot of your friends start dropping like flies once you become spiritual. But I think that happens to a lot of people when they just
That's very true.
kind of are more aware of what's going on.
And you become more isolated.
Oh yeah.
That's very true. And you don't understand at the time why these people are just naturally offloading themselves from your life. Like that's very puzzling to me. I've had that in spades over the years. And I think, okay, right now I get to this point, which is okay, then I'm about to go through this other next transitional phase. And for whatever reason, these people are not supposed to come with me.
Yeah.
And you do start to become isolated. A lot of healers, excuse me, and psychic mediums, they're actually quite isolated.
Oh yeah. Very much so.
They live a life of public service.
Um Oh, can you ask Seth? So our recent CTT thing, you did one for me. We got to my past life. I was like a star, literally.
Oh, yes, that was a remarkable past life experience. Yes, and we got that stars actually have a soul.
Yeah, me. um,
And you were just hanging around in the sky and you hated it.
yeah.
you,
Can you?
you want to talk to all these aliens and fly in a little UFO ship or whatever it is you want to do, but you've been there before, mate. You did not like it.
Right. Well, I was gonna say, can you get Seth's opinion on that in general? Soul past lives as something like a star. What is his opinion on that?
It was a mundane existence.
Yeah.
And you're just sort of at the mercy of divine timing. I mean, how perfect is that? You were created and then you're sort of hanging around there until you burn out. Because if you remember in your past life, you had to like burn out and you became a falling star. You were crashing. And you completely dissipated.
So that makes me think of our sun. Can we probe for fun, like in closing, the how our sun soul, how it feels?
Yeah, absolutely. How does it feel? It feels very powerful.
What was its past life?
Ooh, good question. What was your past life? It didn't have a past life. It has always had just the one life. Are you one soul that's occupying the sun? Yes, it's one soul that is occupying the sun.
And what's its level of consciousness?
What is your level of consciousness? It's not very intellectual, to be honest with you. Now that surprises me, but because it's there to like power all of us, essentially, the job that the sun does. It sacrificed its entire existence for our benefit. We're all down here having many lifetimes, where the sun is important. If we can't live without the sun. The sun isn't doing that. The sun is in one lifetime, and until it burns out. Will you ever burn out? When it's time to move on, the sun will burn out.
Yeah. And actually, that kind of made me wonder. I don't know if you could find out, just for fun, if there were any inhabited planets orbiting that star that I was.
Ooh, good question. Is there any inhabited orbiting that star? No, just Earth.
No, I mean when I was a star.
When you were a star, the only inhabited planet that was using you or could see you or got guidance from you, because that is essentially what you were doing, you were providing direction and guidance, was Earth.
Yeah, kind of like a North Star, basically, something like that.
The North Star? But you weren't the North Star. But
yeah,
back then, when we were probing or when we were doing that CTT session for your past life, it was that everybody relied upon you for this sense of direction.
Right.
That's what your job was. You didn't really have any other job other than that.
But we also got that it was annoying that people were relying on me, but I didn't get anything out of it.
Just like the sun.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if our sun, it doesn't feel annoyed at all about anything.
About the fact that you've sacrificed. Sometimes it does get annoyed, but most of the time it's happy.
And can you ask Seth if Seth wanted to, could Seth converse with the sun's soul?
Can he converse with the sun's soul? No.
Yeah, I just wonder if spirits,
that's forbidden,
kind of traverse the universe, talking to everything around them.
You see, I probably have more power here in this lifetime than I would in spirit. Even though in spirit, I would be full of joy and full of love, but I can't talk to aliens. I can't make predictions. I can't channel Jesus. I can't, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's where people really have to understand that you have to embrace the struggle. And that's hard. And that it was the over.
Well, a blink of an eye, it'll all be over.
Yeah, and it is a blink of an eye. What we think is like years and years and years and years for us here. I think you answered the question tonight, which is due to such a high vibrational frequency when you drop the human body. That time that seems so long for us here is nothing on the other side. You're back down here before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, I'm not saying all, most of us, we just can't wait to come down.
Oh, it'd be physical?
Yeah. We look forward to it. Yes, we're going to grow. Yes, we're going to learn. Yes, we're going to face hardships, but we're prepared and we're going to do it. And, we love all these people that we're making soul contracts with, no matter how horrible they are to us. And
yeah.
then we get here and we have to face the reality and we struggle. and we don't like it. And a lot of us are like, I never want to do this again. I don't even want to be here now. And I certainly never want to come back. But I can promise you, you have to drop that line of thinking.
Oh, here's a
Once you
question for
learn to
Seth.
drop that line of thinking, manifesting becomes easier.
So on that note that we, keep popping in and out of physical existence, can you ask Seth how close our personality is when we're physical to our non-physical personality of ourselves?
Ooh, how close is our personality? That's a good question. To our non-physical personality. That seems to remain constant.
So we kind of, because I'm wondering about our identity, if our, because like a quick example is you got that, someone like Hitler every time, like, does crazy stuff like that, or, killers might always be killers, or not, maybe not always, but I'm just wondering if our personality sticks with us through our lifetimes.
Does our personality stick with us through our lifetimes? The core essentials of our personality. So like things like motivation, determination, happy-go-lucky, those types of things stick with us. A positive demeanor or a negative demeanor. Those are the types of personality traits that stick with us. Somebody who's loud and somebody who's quiet. Things like that. But as far as like the constructs that we become, which is we become, a serial killer, or we become, a horrible person, or we become an addict or whatever, those are just consequences to our foundations that have been laid in this lifetime. But overall, our personality remains the same. I think I could handle doing a video on Jeffrey Dahmer now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Before, when you mentioned it, I was like, oh God, I don't know. But I think I can handle it. Now the hype is over. People have seen the show or the documentary or whatever it is. I think I could handle talking to Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of him. I just don't like channeling dark things.
Well, but that's the question, though, is if they're really dark, that's a human with a soul, he's just operating within the path that is set before him, so the perspective is that maybe they're not dark.
But I think that if you always have this element of darkness, and that is what you're supposed to heal, and you never heal it in many lifetimes, what happens is whatever it is you're supposed to heal, it just gets larger and larger and larger until hopefully you are forced to heal. But obviously he didn't heal, or at least I don't think he did from this lifetime. He still didn't see anything wrong with what he did. So he was completely disconnected from his criminal activity. It was just a job. It was just a process. It was something that, he got a thrill out of. And so he didn't heal.
Okay, yeah.
And you'll have to repeat that.
We'll save that for its own video. We can do there's a couple other famous people we can see what they're up to now in the spirit realm.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do have questions for Jeffrey Dahmer, because that will no doubt become one of our next videos, then you need to email moongrass777@gmail.com or drop a line down in the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions before we close?
Not for Seth, so we'll save it for next time.
Okay. And just on a quick note, how did you feel after your CTT session?
What's interesting is, so my mom also does Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever my mom does Reiki on me, it's like, it feels like I get hit by a freight train because she channels so much energy. And it was kind of like that, where you get like this huge energetic cleansing that, blasts you. So it's cool because, you're just tapping, like, from the person's perspective, it doesn't really seem like much is going on, but like, I definitely felt a lot of metaphysical weight being lifted after the session, basically.
Exactly. And what is so great about the CTT, as far from what I know, the most part is it's a permanent change. So whereas a lot of healing modalities, it only, sorts them out maybe in a short period of time, but the body's natural defenses kick back in. Whereas CTT is a complete rewiring.
Yeah, or for instance, healing could be just physical for this lifetime, but like our CTT didn't have anything to do with this lifetime. It was all the soul baggage from being a star. So that was kind of cool.
Well, because all of your baggage from previous lifetimes is the reason for your life plan in this lifetime. So when we're choosing our life plans for this lifetime, we're going, okay, in this lifetime, this happened to me, so I need to fix this and I need to do that. Okay, now the karma is coming through from this other lifetime, so now I'm the victim instead of the perpetrator, or I'm the witness. Okay, now I hurt this person in the past life, so now this time they're going to hurt me. We're going to get in a relationship and they're going to, you know what I mean? So this is how we make all our soul contracts. This is how we set up our life to function in this lifetime. That's why you have to do past life regression. I know that when I'm doing the CTT, it sounds and feels a lot easier, but it actually really isn't. It took me a good 2.5 years of doing sessions virtually on a daily basis with my mentor, George. Mm-hmm. And then I sort of was turned loose a little bit, but that was my choice. I wanted to try to start doing sessions for people. And then, of course, 4 or 5, I don't know how many years later now, 5 years later, I'm just running through session after session after session. I've done thousands of these things, but certainly it's not, everybody thinks it's so easy to learn. It's a lot of discipline. And that's one thing that as I'm going through, and I don't know if you feel the same way about Reiki, I like the discipline. That's why I like remote viewing. That's why, that's why I like CTT. There's guidelines that you have to follow. That's why I like investing in dividends. Why? Because you have to be very disciplined to be a dividend investor, right? You have to be patient. You have to be methodical. There are certain protocols you have to follow. And I actually, for my personality, I do very well with that. I like the discipline of things. Mm-hmm. So people don't understand. They think, oh, well, yeah, I'm just going to tap on it and I'm going to do this. It's not that simple. And there are some YouTube videos out there. I actually commented on one girl. I don't even know what she was doing. Something about with fluffy animal. I don't know. It's so weird. And I know for a fact that she only ever did one session with George Duisman, the creator of CTT. And then it's like a runaway train. So mm-hmm. I'm, blowing my own trumpet here, but I am the only person that ever stuck around and made sure that I learned it exactly how it was supposed to be done. Because, like Reiki healing, if you take this lightly and you don't take a disciplined approach, you can screw someone up bad. And that's what people don't understand. If you don't do your Reiki approach and go through your protocols, you can screw somebody up.
Yep.
And you don't want to screw somebody up, because guess what? That just created bad karma. So, you know, you have to be careful with these things. But yeah, by all means, I mean, I think the question was like the personality. So I probably always thrive on discipline in every lifetime. So there you go.
Wow.
Jeffrey Dahmer. We've gone from aliens to Jeffrey Dahmer. And now this man's going to haunt me in my sleep because he's standing here. So I'm going to have to get him to leave. Anything else from you, Mr. Robot?
That's it for tonight.
Okay. Sorry if I bored you all with my little love story, but it's just, that was just a perfect scenario of how, you know, I was like, oh, okay, Spirit. Yeah, he's the one I'm supposed to marry. You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of know, and their signs are there. You just have to look for it. You just have to be open to receiving them. It's not looking for them per se. They'll present themselves to you whether you're looking for them or not. It's whether or not you're open to receiving them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mr. Robot, how do people get in touch with you?
Easiest way is just to shoot me an email, moongrass777@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Liz's Discord as well.
Okay, and if you want to find Mr. Robot or any of the interviewers, you join Patreon/remote viewing and beyond. It's only like $3.50 a week, people. Seriously, that is not going to break the bank. It's half the cost of a venti chai tea latte with only 2 pumps of chai syrup at Starbucks. That's my drink of choice, by the way. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Robot. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see what everybody says about this video. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.